myself, Mayor Comrie,
This
and
meeting is
Councillors.
now being recorded.
Thank you, Madam CAO Clerk. And Councillors Lamb, Gorham, Matthews, McEwen, and Woods. And we have, in addition, staff members, Michelle Hendry, our CAO Clerk, Bob Whitman, our Fire Chief, Pat Allen, our Treasurer, Judy Mintz, Deputy Clerk, and David Creaser, our Manager of Public Works. And I believe also on the phone we have John Jackson, and we have Kathy Lamb and Scott Nash. Did I miss anybody?
Doug Hickey.
Oh, Doug.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Okay, well, there may be some others that join as we go, but let's we'll catch them when they call in. Let's get started. I would like to call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. according to my clock, and ask councillors if anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare. Okay, hearing none, let the minutes show that none was declared. Thank you. Next, could we get a motion to approve the agenda circulated, please?
I'll make that motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you. Any discussion? Is anyone opposed to the agenda? Okay, once again, hearing no objection, I'll declare the motion approved. We are supposed to have a presentation and delegation from Dave Thompson, but he has not joined us yet. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Comrie. I've sent him an email to see where he is. I did speak with him by email last week, and he was aware of the meeting and the call-in coordinates. So something obviously has happened. If I hear from him by email, I'll let you know.
Okay, my suggestion would be that we move ahead. We just bypass that item for the moment. We can come back and pick it up later on. And we could go ahead and do our planning item, for which, according to the agenda, we need to move into the committee of the whole. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder for that motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I heard Councillor Gorham Matthews and somebody else who moved?
Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gorham Matthews. That we move into the committee of the whole at 6:35 p.m. Any objection to that motion? All right, thank you. That's carried, and that simply allows us to consider a planning item without a motion on the table. The planning item is a consent application from Ted and Sheila McEwen. And we have a memo from John Jackson, our planner, so I'll ask John if you would like to lead this off, please.
Okay, I was muting on and not muting off. Sorry about that, Council. The application from the McEwens is to create 2 new rural lots on Balsam Road, and the lots have been evaluated in terms of their conformity with the planning instruments. They are all more than large enough to comply. We don't see any constraints. Some relatively standard conditions. We're not sure when the survey is carried out whether Balsam Road will have been a road that is within the ownership of the municipality, so we've suggested a resolution to confirm that, and if it's found that there are any portions of the road that need to be conveyed to the municipality, that they are done. So if there are any questions, Your Worship, be happy to try and address them.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from councillors? Questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Go ahead, please.
John, on page 2 at the top, it says drainage is from creek under Balsam Road to Matson Lake. It should be from Matson Lake. Very small detail.
Oh, no, that's quite correct, Councilor McEwen. You're completely accurate.
Water's flowing downhill there, so.
Yes, okay.
But,
Thank you.
Other than that, pretty complete. Thank you.
So where does that water end up?
It ends up in Manitowoc Lake. It goes under the
Okay.
center road just in from McKellar.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank
Thanks
you. Just curious.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Are there any questions from anyone else? Okay, well, sounds like it's non-controversial in that case. If there's no other discussion, I would ask for a motion to reconvene into our regular meeting.
Leaving
the
meeting.
meeting.
Councilor Lamb.
John Jackson.
Did I hear Councillor Gorham Matthews again?
No, but I'll do it.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll second
All right,
it,
so
Councilor Lamb.
All right, so Councillor Gorham Matthews moves and Councillor Lamb seconds that in that case. If that's all right with you folks, that we reconvene into regular session at 6:39 p.m. Anyone opposed to that motion? Okay, hearing nothing, I'll declare the motion carried. We're back in regular session. And then we have a motion then that you sign your material arising from the Committee of the Whole to indicate our support for this particular application. I'll read it to you and then ask for a mover and seconder. Whereas John Jackson Planner, Inc. has prepared a report for the Parry Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B38/2020. That's from Ted and Stella McEwen, and provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives this report for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby recommends this consent application for approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the payment of parkland dedication fee satisfactory to the municipality. 2, that any portion of Balsam Road found to be 33 feet from the center of the traveled road be conveyed to the municipality at the expense of the applicants. 3, that the 2 new lots receive adequate 911 addressing. And 4, the payment of any applicable planning fees. Could I have a mover and seconder for this motion, please?
I'll make the motion, Councilor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councilor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, I will ask the clerk to read the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Okay, thank you. That motion is carried unanimously. So there is no, we'll just keep going. There is no public meeting. We have a consent agenda, and it consists of minutes of the regular council meeting of November 2nd, 2020, our last meeting, the unfinished business listed on page 3 of your agenda, and a draft, a proposed 2021 budget schedule for our meetings to prepare the budget. So could I get a mover and seconder, please, that council receive and or approve the items contained in the consent agenda dated November 16th, 2020.
I will so move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second.
thank you, Councillor Gorham Matthews. Any discussion? Okay, any opposition to the motion? All right, hearing none, I will declare that motion carried. I will ask if there are any questions or comments. I'm assuming that you are happy with the minutes of the meeting, but are there any other anything anybody wants to raise with respect to the unfinished business or the draft budget schedule? Okay. So it sounds like we're on a roll here, so I will note that there was no discussion.
Breakneck speed.
Yes, indeed. All right, how about accounts payable? Can I get a mover and seconder? Be it resolved that the Council Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve accounts payable in the amount of $207,712.02 and payroll in the amount of $23,625.19 for payment. Moved by,
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
thank you, seconded by,
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
okay, thank you. So, any discussion or questions regarding the items in the payables list?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, I have a couple.
Please go ahead.
354.71, which is Amarak Trail, a payment for roads grant, and of course we're into November now. Same question that I had last time on another road. We're into November. Why are we paying in November something where the deadline is September 30th? What's the story here?
Okay, I will ask our treasurer or our CAO clerk to respond, please.
Hi, yes, it's Pat. To you, Mr. Mayor. There's actually two. On page 1, there's another one for a road grant for Chimo Cove as well. These are cancels and reissues. When I've had about 4 in the last couple of weeks where I was given the cottage address and the check came back and it should have been mailed to a home address because there was no mail delivery. So these are cancels and reissues.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
Are there other items that anyone wants to ask about?
Yeah, I have one more. Check 3750, gravel for Bennett's Landing. I don't think I really have a problem here. We own that road, right? Even though it's called Bennett's Landing. The area where the gravel was put down is something where we own. Is that correct?
I don't know, David. Do you want to comment on this, since you might know which gravel it was?
I can speak to that. We have, I believe, we have a land use agreement. We have our right to that area. Yes, that is correct. There was some correction done right along the shoreline of the road as well, which did straddle a line, because the line was a little muddied in that area, right down at the landing, right down at the water. But the gravel was placed on the parking area, the larger parking area up at the intersection of the three roads, and then we had some down at Indian Narrows Landing, and then down at Bennett's Landing, our portion.
Okay, as long as it's all our portion and we're not setting some new precedent here, I guess is my concern. Are we putting gravel in an area where we've never put gravel before? If the gravel's going down into areas obviously that we own or that we traditionally have put gravel in, I have no problem. But if that's not the case, then I'd want an explanation as to why it was put down. So
The short answer, Councillor Lamb, is that it either the landing itself is referred to as Bennett's Landing or Bennett's Bay Landing. The landing itself is on a land use permit. It's Crown land, but for which the municipality has a land use permit and has had for a long time. The Wawashkish Road actually runs right down into that Crown land. So the reason I was asking our works manager was I wasn't sure exactly where that particular batch of gravel might have gone, but it either went onto the Wawashkish Road, which is a road that we maintain year-round, or it went onto the landing area, which is the area that we have the land use permit for. We did not put any gravel on anybody's private property.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
At least not to my knowledge. Okay. Are there other questions? I had a question for the CAO in regards to, I think it was 35491, which was the Tulloch survey. I thought we were going to pull this item from the list pending further discussion. Am I wrong about that, or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will ask David Creaser to speak to that. We spoke about it today, and I'm going to let him let you know why he approved that dollar amount, even though there is a bit of history. There was an error made by the surveyor, and we're not 100% sure whether it was the direction given or not. But anyway, I'll turn it over to David to provide an explanation of why he felt comfortable paying this amount.
Thank you, David. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so we were looking for initially the municipality was looking for the lower corner at the water for us to establish what land was part of the land use permit for us to put in parking. Somewhere along the line, the information given to the surveyors didn't exactly show that corner. And when they went to establish the corner, there was several other surveys completed in that area previously. A lot of information was in these surveys, which did cause a great deal of confusion and difficulty. So initially, what they laid out was not the corner that we were hoping to get. The drawing that they were given did not exactly show the corner either. I did meet immediately once it came to our attention with Tulloch, who acted in good faith and met with me on the spot and did delve into the history of it all to try and give us exactly what we're looking for. I did direct Tulloch to go and mark an additional corner, or the back corner of the lot, to establish where we could put our expanded parking, the additional accessible, parking down below. Needed to know that corner. So they did provide additional work. They did act in good faith. It was it was a difficult situation. It was remarkably confusing with a lot of information, and if they did act in good faith, at the end of the day, they did give us what we asked for. They did give us what we asked for on top of our initial request. So I felt that that they did earn that portion. Anyway, if another bill does come in, we would have to really look at it hard and see if there's any cause for any more funds to be transferred. They did visit a second time. They did provide a second, markers for 2 locations. So they did do the work. So that was my position when I was approving it, not authorizing it.
Okay. Is it not correct to say, however, that they did make a mistake? They were asked to establish a property line, but the boundary between the land use permit area and Bennett property. They made a mistake and established a line which was incorrect, which then our contractor relied on and did a bunch of work then, which had to be undone as a result of the fact that it was not done in the correct place. Am I not correct in saying that?
I would not say that. No. What were asked was they were given a drawing and given a point on the drawing and asked to find that point. That point on the drawing was not the corner.
So they were given the wrong drawing in the first place? Is that
they were given apologize. They were given a portion of the correct drawing. There was so much information on that little area that the point that was set out was not exactly the corner. It wasn't the corner.
David, I don't know what's going wrong with your connection, but it's not very good.
Oh, I apologize. We'll see. Does that help at all? Is it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So initially, what they were asked to provide was a mark on a survey, which turned out not to be the corner. There was a great deal of information right in that area with a lot of marks, and they picked up what they thought we wanted, which turned out not to be the case. It was several other surveys that were produced after the fact, and the initial surveyor back in when it was first surveyed interpreted all the information in one direction. Then there was a subsequent survey done much later date. That surveyor interpreted that area in question a little differently. And then we went and asked Tulloch to find us the corner, which again, he had a conflict between the two surveyors. which did muddy the water quite a bit. It was not a clear.
It sounds to me that we asked as if we asked them for the wrong thing, because I think the whole reason for having the survey done was to establish a property line, which they should a boundary between two pieces of property. So it's not just a corner; it's a line, and I mean, I saw the line that they established, and it was in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm of the view that a surveyor, if he didn't know what, if he didn't know what he was, regardless of what drawings he was given, he should know. He's not supposed to rely on those drawings. He's supposed to rely on the registered survey information and figure out where the line is. And so I'm a little surprised that somebody that a licensed surveyor would make an error like that and then send us a bill. But however, that's it's not a huge amount of money. It's just it's just the fact that we didn't initially get what we paid for, and unfortunately we relied on what they gave us the first time, and that caused us then to have to do additional work that we wouldn't have otherwise had to do. But in any case, that's my I don't suppose unless the clerk or treasurer feel that we should go back to them and push back on the invoice, then I rest my case. Or I rest my objection, I guess.
It's Michelle Hendry here. I've talked to Dave about it, and I'm confident that he's given this a lot of thought, and it was a difficult situation, and I'm comfortable with paying this invoice.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion about any items on the payables list? All right then. Are you ready for the question then? I guess I'll ask our clerk to do a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gorham-Matthews?
Yes.
Councillor Lamb?
Yes.
Councillor McEwen?
Yes, I will comment that there was a 9.3 that we never discussed. I guess it was accepted as presented. But yes.
Councillor Woods?
Yes.
And Mayor Comrie?
No. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. Going back to 9.3, I'm sorry, perhaps I didn't pause long enough. You're referring to the proposed schedule of meetings for preparation and approval of the budget. Am I correct? Councillor McEwen?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it was on there as an item and not acknowledged.
Did you want to speak to it?
I don't really want to speak to it. When I looked at it, one thing did cross my mind though, and considering future possible debt financing and such, I'm sure we'll be getting an update in the near future as to where we stand with amounts outstanding and payoff times for loans and such. That's the only thing that crossed my mind. So it's possibly something that we could receive heading toward our budget time, and maybe in the near future because of some of these other issues we're looking at financing.
Yes, if I may speak, Pat, it's Pat through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
That will all be included in the budget forecast. Yes, you will receive that.
And the timing on that, Pat, would be, as noted there, December 11th. Is that correct?
I can pull that to, well, as soon as the budget is set and we have to figure out our revenues or expenses and what we will fund or what we may have to borrow for, that would definitely be included.
Okay, we'll just wait our time. Thank you.
Okay then. All right, so we have no bylaws to deal with this evening, so that brings us, I believe, to staff reports. Item 12.1. And this is the results of an RFP for development of an asset management plan. Can I get a mover and seconder for the following, please? That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report FIN-2020-12 for information purposes, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby award the contract for the development of an asset management plan for the core assets of the municipality to R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited in the amount of $27,466.50 plus HST. Can I get a mover and seconder?
I'll move that, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Seconded by?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Gorman-Matthews. I guess maybe we could start with Pat or our CAO, if you have any comments that you want to make to introduce this item, and then we'll take questions from councillors.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Pat. No, I was going to turn it over to you, Pat.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is an additional reporting requirement to the government. Basically, they want to know where their money is being spent. And because we are, capital intensive for roads and maintenance, they want to know exactly what we're using the money for the funding and the grants that we receive. So there's timelines and milestones. The first was the strategic policy in 2019, which was completed in July of 2019. The next milestone is 2021. We are to report on core assets. And then in 2023, it's all other assets. 2024, we establish future levels of service based on sustainability and affordability. And then it's to be approved by council every year going forward. So we sent it out to 6 consulting engineering firms. We received 2 quotes back. One is from R.J. Burnside, who I believe is currently working on a roads needs study. The other one was Greer Galloway. I'm recommending R.J. Burnside. I think it is the lower cost proposal. Greer Galloway was very, very in-depth, very intense. I'm not sure that for this size municipality we need that much work. So I'm suggesting the lower cost, and we are already working with them on a roads needs study.
Okay, thank you. I would just comment that this is actually and you can see in Pat's report, this is a statutory requirement. We are required to do it. It was introduced actually by the previous government a while back with a phased-in schedule, which you can see on a chart there. So we don't have an option I say this just to point out that we don't have an option of not doing it. We could, I guess we could do it if we had ourselves, if we had a larger staff, we with who people who are specialized in this particular area. But anyway, you can see that there are reporting requirements for us on a go-forward basis. And part of it is just to make sure that municipalities are in fact managing their assets and not just ignoring them and waiting for them to deteriorate and then having to spring a very large increase on ratepayers to cover something that's needs rehabilitation or replacement that nobody planned for. And so anyway, that's the object of the exercise. It's a little bit like the requirement that condominium corporations have to make sure that they're looking at their assets and maintaining them appropriately and have appropriate reserves to maintain them and replace them as required. The same general vein only applies to municipalities. So, are there questions or comments about this RFP?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb.
Go ahead.
Pat and Michelle, I'm interested in the interface between this particular document and the roads needs study. For years we've sort of followed, a schedule that said, for this year, for instance, Balsam and Canning were to be done, and then next year I think there's other roads to be done, etc. And there's a whole bunch of very major bridges that need to be done in Whitestone that are massive in terms of their costs. They're not, 100,000 or 400,000. They're in the millions. And so what's the interface between these, this document we're talking about tonight and the roads needs study? What does one tell us, and what does the roads needs study tell us? And where do the costs show up? And where does the schedule as to when we're going to address those particular costs and how we're going to address them? That's a big question, but just take a look at the two studies and tell me what's where, kind of, and when the roads need study is due, right? That they're working on now.
I'll jump in on that. Normally, I'd ask our manager to, but he's fairly new at this. So the road needs study was started in May and is coming close to completion. And this is the first time the municipality's done a road needs study in 10 years. So it's an update from a 2009 study. And so what the road needs study does is just specifically look at the roads, the road network, the condition of the roads, and considers what roads need attention. And it's not always worst first. Sometimes if you can do some rehabilitation on a road and buy it another 5 to 7 years, you want to spend your money on that road first. You may have a road that's already deteriorated. So that's what the road needs study looks like, and we're probably, I would say we're maybe 3 to 4 weeks away from finalizing it. David and I had a long conversation with RJ Burnside on that. So the other piece, of course, is the bridge assessment. At this time, we don't have any bridges that require replacement, but we do have bridges that have some needs that haven't been attended to over the years. And this could be superstructure or abutments, lots of guide rail and approach work that needs to be done. And David has read that study and is going to be incorporating some of that work into the budget this year.
Is that in the roads needs study? Will that come out in the roads needs study, the bridges?
No, they're two separate studies, two separate consulting firms, two separate areas of specialization. One is structural, one is civil engineering.
And when was the last time the bridge study was reviewed? Is that 2009 also?
No, in 2019, and there is legislation that requires the bridge assessment to be done every 2 years. So one was done in 2019, and there'll be one done. Will be budgeted for another study in 2021.
Thank you.
So what the asset management plan does is it pulls all of your assets together: roads, bridges. We're going to be adding fleet in this year because we've got very little rolling stock. And we'll be looking at the small water systems as well. That will be part of the core assets. What will happen in future years is all of our facilities and buildings, and that takes a little bit more effort. And the asset management plan looks at all of your assets together and helps the municipality look at the needs, but collectively, all the assets as opposed to just roads and just bridges. It pulls all the information together, and it will be able to demonstrate to council where the money should be spent, whether it's a significant road or a roof on a building, and then that will help council budget carefully to make sure all the assets are attended to once the full asset management plan is done. And then I don't think we need to update the road need study as regularly as we have to do the bridges because we don't have a lot of roads and there's not a lot of roads that are hardtop. So this particular road need study should do the municipality for at least 5 to 7 years. So everything will be pulled together in the asset management plan that speaks to the core assets by July, and a little bit late for the budget, but we'll be incorporating what we know now into the budget, and then for the 2022 budget, you'll have the core asset management plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on this item?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen, thank Councilor Clem for leading us into that explanation, which was very, very useful. When I looked at the chart, and there was a gap almost between 2020, and we're just sitting back we're at November 20 now, and on the chart, the blue is 2021, and then it goes all the way over to 2023. So what had crossed my mind was, okay, how do the budgetary components fit into that? I think, Michelle, you've explained it quite well. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this item? Okay. So, Madam CAO, do you want to call a roll call vote, please?
I will, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Gora Matthews?
Yes.
Councillor Lamb?
Yes.
Councillor McEwen?
Yes.
Councillor Woods?
Yes.
And Mayor Comrie?
Yes. Thank you. That motion is carried. That brings us to item number 13. And there are 4 items here. These are business matters for discussion. The first one is the information document that is proposed to be mailed out with the November newsletter. There's a suggested motion, which is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the information document regarding the Pool and Wellness Center for information purposes, and there's an opportunity then to recommend any edits to it. So it could be that it's approved with edits or whatever. But anyway, we'll let's see if we can get a mover and seconder for the motion that is on your paper.
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Thank you. Okay, that opens it up for discussion. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I will kick it off just to get things started.
Go ahead.
Councilman McEwen. Yeah, just a couple thoughts I had, and I talked to our CAO today just briefly. One is consideration to include an actual dollar amount of tax increase for $10,000 or $100,000, I guess, assessment to show people what 1%, 2%, or if we go to 3% or some percentage would represent in actual dollars. I certainly appreciate what's here. Percentages are good. People can pull their taxes out and see and play around with it, but when you see that it's going to cost you, just to put a number, $5 per $100,000, and your assessment $500,000, just 5 times that number, and there's your tax increase sort of thing. I think it's just an easy connection for folks. That was just one other sort of detail item that I had there. I'll just follow along with conversation here. I thought it was an excellent report, Michelle, and between you with your report and all your information, and we've received a number of items and things to look at and get us thinking from Doug Hickey and folks like that already. So hopefully this will generate some really good feedback from people to see how they feel about the whole project moving forward, whether it's financial or other needs related. So anyway, that's just a general kickoff. I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go second, Councillor Lamb. I, like Councillor McEwen, think it's a pretty good letter. It's certainly a comprehensive letter that I think, if people read the whole thing, will give them a pretty good idea of what's being proposed and what the costs are. I'm not against what Councillor McEwen's saying. I think we have to, maybe pick 3 or 4 price points, right? I don't know what the low cost in some of the farms and stuff in the area in terms of impact value, but say it's 200,000. So you might pick a $200,000, $400,000, $600,000, and $800,000 properties, and show what 3.5% is per year for a 10-year period, I think is the way it should be said, and what that would cost people. Then point out, of course, that would exclude any cost to join the YMCA. I think should be in there too, so that people aren't confusing, the 3.5% or whatever with the cost for the YMCA. But I think overall that's a good idea. The only area that I think needs to be increased is the very end, where it says, we go on a long time hoping to keep their attention, which is sometimes very hard in a 3 or 4 page letter. But then it says, we want your input, and it's the smallest part of the whole document. So it just hits me as we really don't want your input, but put your glasses on fine tune, and if you can read this, that's great. But anyway, that needs that whole area needs to be expanded in terms of its size, and so that it reflects and gets the proper message. The only other thing that I would add after, please send your comments or questions to whitestone.ca and No Pool and Wellness Center in the subject line is, I would like to see at one point, maybe it's, your input is important to us. I would like to put a statement, something like, tell us whether you're for or against this project. A plain and simple, 6-word question like that, so that when they're talking to us or giving us their comments, they're going to say, I'm for this or I'm against that. So I'd like to see that put in. The other thing that came up today, I had a call from a 75-year-old man who lives in the community for 6 months, and he had heard about this through someone or something, and he said, how do I express my opinion on it? And I said, well, you're going to be getting a letter. And he said, oh, well, that's good. That's what I was going to ask you. And I said, yeah, there's going to be a letter. Go out and read it carefully, and it'll give you all the details. And you can go to whitestone.ca and give us your comments. And he went off on me that of course he's never had a computer, and that he doesn't communicate through email and whatever. And I said, well, you can call the office. So I think in that last portion, we have to also build into, or contact us by letter, or to, the Whitestone community at, whatever on Church Street in Whitestone and POA 1GO or whatever. So we need to put a mailing address and tell them that they can also contact by mail to us, okay, so that they don't have to necessarily do it through email. But other than that, I think the letter is a comprehensive letter. It shows us the costs, what our costs are. It goes into the why model. I think it's accurate. I think it's unbiased, which is important. And I think we'll over the December timeframe probably get a good input, hopefully, from our citizens, and so that early in January we can discuss it, and I guess we're going to also have an open house sort of, or a Zoom meeting in mid-December. I don't know whether there's mention in here of the Zoom meeting or not. I forget.
It's right up at the beginning, Councillor Lamb.
Oh, is it good? Okay.
It's in red top of the first page.
I see. Zoom meeting details to be provided on the Whitestone website. Then it should say the website, right? www.whitestone. Whatever that website is, it should follow, not just on so they're not searching for the website, whatever it is. So we should put that in there, I think, too. So okay, thank you. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, other comments?
Councillor Woods.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I'd just like to say this is a good report. There's a lot of information in here. I agree with what both Councillor Lamb and Councillor McEwen said. The 3.32% proposed tax increase, I think it should be stated in there that it is per year, just so people understand that, it would be a 3.32% tax increase per year rather than just a one-time thing. And the information box at the bottom, I also had a couple conversations with people in, like, my dad's age category, 70 plus, and they said, well, I don't have a computer. So I definitely think it's a good idea to allow people to mail in their thoughts on this and whether they're for it or against it. Even if they could just drop them off in the office mailbox if they didn't actually have to put them in the mail. I think it'd be good to have something to that effect put on this form here.
Okay, thank you. I'm making notes of these things as you go along, so I'll read you before we get finished. Anyway, are there other comments?
Yes,
I guess,
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I spoke to that, I believe it's probably the same gentleman that Councillor Lamb spoke to this morning. He called me at work today as well. And I just wanted to mention that for Zoom, I don't know if we can explain this maybe on the website or in the letter, that you don't have to be on the computer. You can actually call into a Zoom meeting as well. So you can call and just listen and talk as well and voice your opinion. You don't need a computer or internet to participate in a Zoom meeting.
Good point.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. The that would be in the detailed instructions as far as the meeting is concerned. But yes, maybe mentioned to people. That, yeah. Go ahead,
Councillor Woods. Just one more point that I thought about. Once we have this completely finalized the way that we're all happy with, and we're gonna send it out. I'd suggest that we send this out to all of the lake associations and cottage associations and ask them to post it on their website also, just so we could reach as many people as possible with this. Maybe somebody doesn't get their mail or they see something coming from Whitestone and think, oh, it's the newsletter, I'm just going to throw it out, right? But they might be
sure,
in tune on their cottage association websites and Facebook pages and whatnot.
Good idea.
Okay, thank you. Anything else anybody would like to?
Mr. Mayor, can I just bring up one? Sorry?
Sorry, Councillor Lamb, or Councillor McEwen, I hear you. Go ahead.
Am I next? Okay.
Go ahead.
Just one other item that I was going to mention. I wonder how council feel about looking at a 10-year loan period and a 20-year loan period, and just show the difference in there. I'm not sure why we would just limit it to 10 years on this type of project if the interest rate is very, very low, which certainly is today. I'm not sure where it will be 2 years from now, hopefully the same. But if we had a comparison of 10 years and 20 years, showing what the percent on the taxes would be at a 20-year payback, it'd probably drop it down from the 3.2 to, I'm not sure, it's not proportionate, but maybe go down to 1.5 or something, just to put that in with the actual dollar amount that we're hoping to come up with per $100,000 of assessment or whatever. So it's just a thought to kick around.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was actually going to mention that normally speaking, a debenture would be 15 years, I would say. I don't know, perhaps our treasurer would comment on this, but I mean, I guess the 10 years was a very, what do you say, conservative or worst case or whatever situation, but I would have expected a debenture for a capital project of given the total value of it, that normally it would be longer than, I mean, 15 years would in my mind would be the shortest period. Could be 22, but I don't know. Pat, do you have any thought on this particular subject?
Hi, yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. You can do 10, 15, or 20 through Infrastructure Ontario, and that seems to be the best rate, the best rates right now.
Maybe
Okay.
I could jump in, Mr. Mayor, just for a minute.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I did make an adjustment to this document that this afternoon, of course, Council hasn't seen it, where I did add in a 10-year amortization, which Council sees, and I added in a 20-year amortization, which would represent a 1.79% tax increase if financed entirely through taxation. So I've given two options, 10-year and 20-year, and then if we landed on 15, one could expect it would be somewhere in the middle. And of course, that's just for discussion purposes. So that was contemplated and talked about over the last few days. So that's been added into the letter. And I'm wondering if Pat could speak to how we would show what a percent increase would be for, say $100,000 of assessment. We talked about it briefly this afternoon, but I was sort of on my way out. How would you be able to represent that, Pat, so that it could be understood? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So when you talk about the rate per person, it's hard to communicate that because our assessment database, I can tell you right now, a 1% increase generates approximately $25,000 in revenue. So to equate that back to per person, it's rather difficult because you have the different classes. So it's on total. So that would be $25,000 raised in taxation revenue equates to approximately 1%. So it's on our total assessment database.
And of course, yeah, because you have the different categories who are not sharing in that in the same fraction, right? The waterfront are higher and the farms are much lower, that sort of thing. Is that what you're getting at?
Correct. So individually, you have a different assessment value.
I hear you. It's very difficult to give an average. I guess you could give an average impact value, but it's going to understate it for those on the water and overstate it for those on farms.
Correct. So what I've had to give you is on our total assessment, what that would generate.
I guess my comment on all these figures, maybe the impact thing, given that, is difficult to give and misleading. And I don't want to, I think what's here, people can understand. If you want to say it's, 3.3 if we debenture it over each year, if we debenture it over 10 years, if we borrow over a 20-year period, it's going to be whatever, a 1.79%. I don't mind putting that in because people can equate out 10 years or 20 years. As long as it's a per year amount. But I think if we start getting too much deeper than that, we're gonna confuse them, and I don't think that does any of us any good. And so I'll back off my statement on the impact value because I think it gets too complicated, and you can't accurately portray it. And I don't think we want to inaccurately portray anything. So those are my comments.
I guess I would make the argument that a whatever it is, a 2% or 3% or whatever tax increase, if you tell people that that's what this single item would represent, they know what they're paying in taxes right now, and if nothing else changes, if their assessment doesn't change, and that's the only change there is if they're paying $1,000 now and it goes up 2%, then they're going to pay another $20 in taxes, right?
And they'll figure it out pretty quick.
And it doesn't matter whether they're a farm or a a managed forest and they're paying 25 cents on the dollar, they still know what they're paying. They can still figure out, take a percentage of what they're paying right now and say, yeah, that's how much it's going to go up. Oh, yep.
That's correct. To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. I don't want to throw another monkey wrench into this as well, but our impact reassessment did not happen this year. Their tentative date is still out there. So there's also a reassessment looming over us for a next 4-year phase-in that would impact us as well. But that's not happening this year.
We don't, and the answer is we don't know when it's happening. It might not happen in 2021 either.
Correct. They're waiting for the minister. Yeah, they're waiting for the Minister of Finance to give them some guidance.
Okay. All right. Well, are there any other comments on this item?
Are you accepting comments from the floor, from the public?
Yeah, I think we can. We don't have a.
No.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doug.
First,
Doug, right?
I think the report. Yes, it's Doug. Sorry, Doug Hickey. I think the report was excellent. I think they've whoever put it together, if it was Michelle and George, whoever was involved, it's very good. 3 small items. Whatever number you come up with, I suggest, especially based on what we just heard, that you put the word estimated in front of the percentage. Because the way it reads now, it says it would represent a 3.32.
you know there's going to be changes with assessment, so I recommend you put the word estimate. Second point, very minor, is when the document describes that there could be things done to reduce the annual costs, one of the things we haven't done is said also the opposite of that. If there are upsides on running the facility, we're responsible for that as well. So if we're going to mention the downside, I think we should be mentioning the upsides as well. The third point, it's somewhat minor. We've mentioned the cost for the Y membership, but I don't think we've made it crystal clear that that's over and above any contribution by Whitestone as a municipality. So we've mentioned the cost, but I don't think we're actually telling people you're going to have to pay for this as well. So those are the three minor points.
Okay, thank you.
May I speak?
I think.
Hello?
Is that Kathy?
It is, yes.
Go ahead.
So, hi, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm kind of a linear thinker, and I noticed that in the report it talked about the First Nations communities being part of CAC, but it didn't mention any cost sharing in the formula. So I think people might wonder, why are they in Part A but not in Part B? So is that something that should be addressed?
Well, I'll let the CAO, who by the way is the author of this report that you have in front of you. So your compliments to that go to her. I think there was a reluctance to sort of dig into this whole question of, but perhaps Michelle, you could make a brief comment about it. I don't know, and see whether it's something that we should put or not in the paper.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It probably requires more explanation than we have room for here, but the reality is the First Nations were certainly part of the initial discussions. As we started this project, they were on board as we talked about our application for the grant, and they were important partners on that grant application. The reality is the way the First Nations are structured is they were simply unable to commit to capital funds, and we recognize that they will have a seat at the table, but once the governance model is in place, but they won't have a vote. So the votes are representative of the percentage that people have contributed. So it's a relationship that we've fostered, and we still try to keep the First Nations folks involved, and we're certainly interested in them participating where they can. But it was made clear to us fairly early in the process that they were unable to contribute capital, and we really haven't had any commitment with it when it comes to operating. So that's the partnership that we have in place right now.
And are the First Nations communities going to be prepared to participate fully in the use of the facility, the cost per person, or is there a different expectation?
The First
No, that's
Nation,
yes. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, we're probably delving, further ahead than I can predict, but the conversations that we've had with the First Nations is they very much want their community to have a facility like this to utilize. Their membership rates will be no different than anyone else's, if that's what you're asking, Mrs. Lamb.
I am asking that. And I just also want to say that I was part of the Citizens Consultation Committee, and the recommendations going forward were not unanimous. I just want that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And do we say, Councillor Lamb, do we say in the letter that all costs assume a full participation by all the other members? Is that stated in there? I know that's what it is. So, in other words, if for some reason McKellar decides not to go forward with this, then our commitment at 6.1 would thereby go up. And I think we should put just a sentence in there, a small sentence saying, these costs assume full participation by all the partners. Thank you.
I've noted that. I do say the remaining 27% of the cost will be shared amongst the 7 municipalities should they agree to participate. But taking it one step further, I'll incorporate that comment so there's no misunderstanding. Thank you.
Good point.
Okay. If there are no other comments, I'll just read back the motion again. It's that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives the information document regarding the Pool and Wellness Center for information purposes. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend the following edits. And what I have on the list is, I've just recorded the comments that were suggestions that were made. The first one the first one we took, which was the the actual tax dollars for given assessments, I've taken out, so it's not there. But the comment about people needing to respond by mail and people who don't have computers or email or internet, list the actual municipal website, the URL of the municipal website. The fact that there would, sorry, somebody needs to mute their phone, please. Thank you. The ability to call in at the to the information meeting on December 14th. The suggestion to send the package to the Lake and Road Associations. The item regarding the term of the debenture, whether it's 10 or 20 years, I think we agreed we would use those as examples, those two examples. The suggestion to add the word estimated before the tax rate increase. And I think at the end we decided that it was not to try to get into the discussion of how the First Nations participate, simply because you would have to get into a discussion of how they're funded. I'm sure you know they're funded very, very differently from the way municipalities are funded, and they don't tax as we do and various other things. And the other thing, of course, is that we're trying to get this piece to fit on two sides of an 8.5 by 14 page, I believe, Michelle, if I'm not mistaken. So, anyway, those are the suggestions that I've noted here for as amendments to the document. Can I call the question?
Well, Mr. Mayor, just hold on. I had 2 or 3 at the front. I want to make sure that they're in. I think as the discussion went on about the impact values, I thought that Pat had sort of said it's very difficult to put that in, and I had explained, it is, by saying here's what it is per 100,000, because it's not fair to many groups because the tax rates are different. and I thought we decided not to go that route. But,
We did. That's
you
what
know,
I say. We took it. It's taken out. It's not on my list.
Okay, it is. Okay, I wasn't sure what you said. You said it's in,
no.
it's out. It's okay. So it's out. Okay.
I recorded it when you suggested it. I've crossed it out.
No, Joe McEwen suggested it. But anyway, that's good.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I want to make sure that my idea of that the input area be bigger is in there, which should be up near the top, right? And that there should be a statement in there that says, tell us whether you're for or against this project. I didn't hear you say that.
Okay, I've got it here. Larger input area. Tell us in favor or not. Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anything else that we missed there? All right. Can I call the question then? Are we ready?
I think it's your phone, Mr. Mayor. It's repeating everything you say.
Okay, that wouldn't likely be mine. I mean, I'm using an earpiece with a microphone in it. I'm not using.
Okay.
Is there anybody else who has a phone that's not muted?
It's good now.
Okay, so can you? Am I still echoing to anybody?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, can I call the question then? Anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, hearing none, I will declare it carried. Thank you for your discussion and contributions. Looks like we are not going to get Dave Thompson this evening, but we'll just keep going. We have next item 13.2 is a report. I take it an oral report from our CAO clerk on the website.
Mr. Mayor, can I go back to Mr. Thompson for a second? He was supposed to come and he was supposed to come and delegate tonight. But I noticed that, you know, one of the things that I think McKellar or Magnetawan or someone had asked in their initial motion was he provide an itemized list of the overtures so that people knew it was, 10 grand was overtime, 40 grand was this, 60 grand was that. And in his presentation that came to us tonight, there was no mention of that. So if staff could please direct him when and if he shows up, and he may have had an emergency tonight, we don't know, but that he supplied that and not just, forget or pretend that request didn't exist, because it still does, and that's important in terms of our deliberations. So if staff could just ask him that in anticipation of his future delegation, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I made the same comment, and I believe the clerk did as well. Am I right?
That's correct. The intent was I actually invited Mr. Thompson, and he agreed to come. I agree that something obviously happened. I sent a text and an email, and there's been no response. So we'll assume that something came up, and we'll plan for him to attend on December 7th, which is our next meeting.
Yeah. And
make sure that the information requested is in the package.
Okay, thank you. So, Madam CAO, would you like to continue with 13.2, please?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very long report. I've mentioned several times over the last few months that we're working on a website. We've hired a gentleman to help with coordinating mostly the technical piece. He's been doing some of the web page writing and assisting there, and just going through and making sure everything is correct, and if it's not, asking questions. I've received some wonderful help from Councillor Gordon Matthews, who has been able to provide some information and some editing on information that's specific to Whitestone that neither myself or Sam would have known about. And we're very close. I'm hopeful within the next 3 weeks that the website will go live. It won't be perfect. There'll be some pages that won't be there, but the majority of the core information will be there, and then we can just keep adding to it. We have to make sure it's AODA compliant, which is one of the things that's holding us up right now. But I just wanted to tell you the good news that website work has been sort of plodding along in the background over the last few months. And once the website work is done, we can put our mind to the rest of the communication strategies that were recommended by Molly. And that also will take a little bit of time, but we can do some of that work in parallel. The focus right now has been the website, and that's been eating up a lot of time. So that's my report, Mr. Mayor. Just some good news. The website is just about there.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on that report? If not, we can move to item 13.3, which is a report that was requested at, I think, the last meeting or the one before, regarding cameras at the landfill sites. And I believe David Creaser is going to speak to this one. David?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The cameras, we have cameras located at Alt landfill and York landfill. The cameras provide a high-resolution image, a very crisp image with excellent zoom ability. This does take a lot of data, I guess, with all the pixels. It does take a lot of data to achieve, but the image is remarkable. To my knowledge, there's been 2 incidents, one at either landfill where garbage was left outside the gate, but the date and time was not well recorded. To go back and find the image, it does take some time to go through all the camera footage. We have talked to the staff, and the staff are going to put into their daily reports better information and report immediately when that does happen, so we could go back and use those cameras. It does appear that their residents are aware of the camera range, because the other day I drove up to York, and just around the corner out of range, I did find 2 bags there. So people are aware of the cameras, and I do expect that this will help curb people dropping garbage at the gate or recycling at the gate.
So, David,
okay, thank you.
Sorry, David.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Lamb, through you, Mr. Mayor. David, the concern, the one concern was at York Street, where a bunch of garbage was put outside and certainly the time frame of when that happened, the landfill attendants knew, and so did a couple of websites in Whitestone that posted long threads on this thing, and they of course diverted into all kinds of discussion and topics at the landfill site. But having said that, we knew the dates. You're saying that the time and date information on the system itself is either not there or not accurate or whatever. So you couldn't search to find, Sunday morning at between 6 and 10 or something. You couldn't do that. Is that what you're saying?
The date appears to be on. The time appears to be off. I'm not entirely sure how much. I know when there was an instance where I was asked to go back to the camera footage, I did have to go through what appeared to be the whole day, and then the daylight hours were actually straddling the night hours from one day to the next. So that is, he's still working on getting that corrected. And then the time that, if I know the date exactly when it was, and that's given to me, then I can go back through the files and pull it up. It's best if I go to the site, go right to the camera to pull it up. It doesn't do it better that way.
Because most times people who would abuse it like that, the landfill attendants would most likely know if it's a resident in Whitestone who that resident is, right? And it could be handed over to bylaw or whatever, for littering or whatever the complaint or charge would be. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good deterrent. My main concern on that was, as the clear bags come, that is there also a camera that points towards the to where people put their refuge over the side? Is there a camera that does that, or is it just the cameras just go towards the gate?
I believe they will go both directions. Now, the one at all is a ways, like it's to the gate, and it does capture the image over the edge, but that's some distance away. So,
okay,
it's in the bag maybe a challenge.
Okay.
They are very good.
Okay.
But, it is quite a distance.
Okay, and the information is gathered on a PC where in the office? Is that you view, or is it stored up at the landfill site and then transferred somehow?
I understand it's stored at the landfill, and you request when I want to look at the images, I then request that information from the landfill. So then the time I'm asking for the image room, I'll pick a time, and that's then sent over to me. So if I went directly to the landfill in question and looked at it there, the information that wouldn't have to be transferred over the internet. So
okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, anything else about landfill cameras? Okay, the next one is Blue Box and producer responsibility update. Once again, David, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at some background of the Blue Box program, it's been around for some time now. The purpose was to ensure that consumers adopt appropriate recycling behaviors, and the municipalities were responsible for capturing basically whatever the Blue Box items came to them. So whatever the producer produced, us as a municipality basically kept whatever's received. The new regulation is producer responsible for all the Blue Box items. So it'll be completely producer responsible regulation. So upon completion of the transition in 2026, when it's all done in transition, Blue Box should then be in full force and would provide several benefits. The municipality may mutually agree to work with the producers, or the municipality has no obligation to provide Blue Box collection if it chooses. The producers will be required to collect where Ontarians generate materials. This would include permanent and seasonal dwellings, schools, parks, public spaces. The proposed regulation would be outcomes focused. It would be one single coordinated collection system opposed to having a different collection system in Toronto and then coming up here and having a different collection system. It would all be the same collection system across Ontario. Our municipality is set to, the proposed date is 2025 for us to transition. And this is the same as all our neighbors, which would be all the small municipalities in the area, West Parry Sound, East Parry Sound, would all transition to 2025. The proposed transition would be for larger municipalities to go first, like Toronto, and then trickle down to the smaller ones. Some of the things that we would require is accessibility and service for our ratepayers. We don't want our ratepayers have to travel distance to go to Magnenawan or to go to Parry Sound just to get rid of their blue box items. We want service hours as well as location and collection. So going forward, there is a webinar tomorrow put on as well for this core elements of this proposed regulation coming through. There's a deadline for December 3rd. We have to comment for this proposed regulation, so we would have to get all the comments together and on to get our voices heard. We've been talking with our surrounding municipalities, our neighbors on the west side, West Parry Sound, and it sounds like we're going to get together, put our comments together, and put them forward. There's also talk about getting Parry Sound involved as well. At that time, we're not sure what our options are as far as going sooner. We need a good argument for going sooner to put forward, and that's about where we're at with that new regulation coming in. Is there questions regarding the new proposed regulations and how it affects us as a municipality?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Go ahead.
David, in the past, we've had a grant sort of scenario, I guess, a payout by the province for blue box usage. Is there an intention for them to get back into promoting it through assistance for the blue box program again, or is it all being just sort of thrown back or over to the municipalities?
In the past, I understand we received a 50% funding, so the producers would ultimately put about 50% forward to cover the cost of the municipality for the blue box program. Going forward, once the full transition's in place, it would be 100% on the producers. Is that the question?
Be 100% on the municipalities? Do I hear?
100% on producers. So the producers of the weight of the packaging would be, an example would be print paper, like residential print paper and packaging items. The items that we see in the blue box now, those items should be a larger, they should capture more items. So single-use takeout containers, single-use items, packaging wraps, straws, cutlery. It should include more items as well. And that's all going to be on whoever produces them is responsible for collecting them, not the municipality. The municipality has no obligation to continue collecting blue box at all if we so choose.
But if we do, it would be at our expense totally to have it shipped out.
So, to answer that, I'll try to answer that clearly. Yeah. We don't have a right to continue to do it. It's up to the producers to mutually agree to enter into agreement with us to continue to do it. So we don't have the right of first refusal. So if they're going to go out and change the blue box program to a contractor, we don't have a first crack at it. It would be up to the producers.
Okay. Thank you.
So going forward, that being said, is what can we do for our ratepayers? So comments going back on the draft proposal would consider how they're going to service our ratepayers, the accessibility and the service levels that the producers would provide our ratepayers. That would be certainly a big concern of ours going forward.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lamb, I'm not sure I understand any of this stuff, so I'm not going to beleaguer it tonight. But I didn't know who the producers were, and now I do. I think the people that produce plastic are going to be responsible for collecting plastic, I guess is what this is all about, or cardboard. They're going to be in charge of collecting that cardboard, right? And if we want, we can get out of the game, and our ratepayers would have to do whatever the producers, whoever they come up with an agreement to collect that. Is that basically what you're saying, David?
I think you put it very well, actually.
Good.
The idea is the idea that this regulation is to increase the current targets. So that would force the producers to continue to give service to the smaller municipalities. So we'll increase the targets for diversion rates, also increase the items that are currently being accepted by the program, the Blue Box program. Let's say polystyrene or your stuff like that. That would have to be included. Producers do claim that they can do it more efficiently, and they believe that they can have 20% efficiency costs over municipalities looking after it. But as it stands right now, is the municipality pays about half, and the producers pay about half. So when it's fully transitioned, the municipality should save that money. There's going to be a transition period. We may have to set a little bit of money aside, a very small amount of money for messaging to get the ratepayers on board with the transition. If, for example, if the municipality is no longer accepting Blue Box or part of the Blue Box program, that we would have to get the message out. If these items are left on the side of the road, here's the number you call, not the municipality. You don't call the councillors, you don't call the mayor. It's these people over here who do the collections. That type of messaging would be important in our transition. We would have the opportunity to see how Toronto and some of the larger municipalities work with that messaging. It will be better for our municipality, being that it will be one system. So the way they do it in the south is the way they do it when they come up here to our municipality to enjoy their seasonal property. So that should be a great benefit to us as well.
So are all the, excuse me, through you, Mr. Mayor, are all the cardboard and paper producers going to get together to form a consortium to get all the paper in the province? Certainly each producer isn't going to make their own individual arrangements, are they? I mean, won't there be, one for plastics and one for papers, and they'll be in charge with to make whatever arrangements with the municipalities to pay them to collect their materials is what I would think. And then following through on that, I wouldn't see how it would be in their best interest to set up an agreement with each single municipality. They might just say, hey, all the cardboard in the Parry Sound area has to be dropped off in Parry Sound, and we'll pay Parry Sound to collect it all for us, and you have to everyone has to take it into Parry Sound. They're not going to, I don't think, care about Whitestone or McKellar or Magnetawan or other small communities. Or am I? Maybe I'm seeing it right.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Councilor Lamb. If I can just jump in for a second here, they're not allowed to do that. There's a basic principle, and by the way, some of you maybe would recall that after the Roma conference, I shared with councilors a link to the website to the Roma website where you could look at some presentations. There was a fairly elaborate presentation on this program and on these talking about how these proposed regulations would work and so on. And I managed, I don't think it's probably, the Roma website is still there, but I managed to capture it all on a USB stick. And if anybody wants to look at it, I would be happy to arrange to give you a copy of it that you can just look at on your computer. And it would give you a lot more information. But the principle behind it is that the level of service that you have now is supposed to continue on into the future, and of course that depends on where you are. So people who already have curbside pickup of Blue Box, they will continue to get curbside pickup of Blue Box. We don't have curbside or dockside pickup of Blue Box, and we're not going to get that as a result of this program. But they aren't going to. They can't say, okay, you have to take your cardboard to Parry Sound and your plastic to Magnetawan and your boat wrap to McDougall and your this or that or the other thing. There has to be a place that is at least as convenient as the arrangement that we have right now with our landfill sites / transfer stations. So the most likely scenario for us is that, in fact, the consortium of recyclers would come to the municipality and say, can we continue to use your landfill sites / transfer stations as a collection points because your ratepayers are used to that? But there would be separate places for all these various things in the site. And the things that are now that they're not taking that are recyclable that are going over the side because our current recycling producers don't take them, they would end up taking, I won't say all of them, because the target that they've set for 2025 is a pretty, for diversion, is a pretty modest one, I have to tell you, but they would be taking more of it, and they would probably be taking some of these items like styrofoam and boat wrap and that sort of thing, and they'd say, fine, we'll give you a bin to put that stuff in, and you put it there, and we'll take it away, and we'll recycle it. So whereas right now, as you probably know, even when we have a bin for some of these things, what happens is somebody comes and takes it down to McDougall, and they throw it over the the edge into their landfill site. It's not being recycled necessarily. A lot of these things will have to be recycled, and they will, in fact, at no cost to us. Okay, so they won't say, sure, we'll come pick it up, but we're going to charge you, so many $1,000s for a bin. They'll send a truck up here, they'll take it away, and so I think the goal, I mean, there's a lot of details to be worked out, keep in mind, but I think the goal here is to have at least the service and convenience that we have now, and at a lower cost, and with more of the potentially recyclable items actually being recycled as opposed to being dumped somewhere else. So that's, I don't know if that helps, but that will. That's the philosophy behind what they're trying to do. And no, I haven't looked at the draft regulations, but if you'd like to look at them, they're there for, I don't know, we could certainly look at them and provide comments, I guess. I haven't looked at them yet, but they're out for comment. The draft regulation is. It's not going to affect us immediately, because as David said, we are not scheduled. By the way, we were asked when do you want to transition, and we could have said we'd like to transition in 2023, I guess, or 20. but we and most of the other municipalities in West Parry Sound didn't respond, so we all got left to the end, assuming that's what we want. Assuming that no response meant we weren't ready to deal with it, right? Anyway, if you'd like that presentation, I'm happy to share it with you, and you can look at it. And I'll give you quite a bit more information on the philosophy of what they're doing and how it works in various scenarios. And there are some examples of municipalities, big ones and smaller ones that have mixed rural and residential, not as small as ours, but you can see how some other municipalities have approached this. Are there any other comments or questions about full producer responsibility?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods, just a quick one.
Yeah.
So from what everyone said about the full producer responsibility and what you were saying about bins, so we would have to further separate all of our recycling streams. So to me, like, is that talking more bins for our facilities? Potentially, if you want glass separated from the plastics, the numbered plastics, and then the not numbered plastics and styrofoam, if they want all that separated, or cardboard separated from newsprints, would that be more bins for us? And is it they would drop a bin off and we use them, and we just got to provide an area for them, or would we have to purchase bins?
Well, my understanding is that whatever the cost is a cost to the producer, not supposed to be to us. But I guess they would. I expect that the producer, the agents of the producers, the recycling agents, will come to the municipality at some point in due course. Probably not until getting closer to 2025, I suppose, unless we push them to do it sooner. But they would come to us and say, okay, we'd and they might not. They might say, well, we have a better location, but it's a couple of miles east on instead of at York Street, for example, it's a couple of miles east on Highway 124. They would buy a yard or something. I don't know, a recycling yard or depot. They don't have to deal with us, as David said, but they probably would want to, just because our ratepayers are used to going there and they kind of know some of the rules. And they would say, okay, we need areas for more bins. And I guess we'd have to figure out how that, where we had space to put them, right? But they would, I'm assuming they would provide them, and they would look after clearing them out too, as however it's required and whatever frequency is required.
Okay. I was just thinking about.
I'm sorry, I can't be more specific, because without having this, every situation, every municipality, there's going to be a detailed discussion about, well, what do you already do? How does that fit into the new system? What else has to be added to it? What do you need to make it happen, et cetera? I would think.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so that brings us to correspondence. Can I get a mover for the following, please? Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 4 of the November 16th, 2020 Council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that Council hereby receives the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion action. And we'll make a list in a second. But can I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move. Councilor McEwen.
Okay, I heard Councillor McEwen, I think. A seconder?
Yes.
I'll second Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods, thank you very much. So can you look at the list and advise which of those things you want to talk about, if any? I'm not hearing any. Are there any that you, or are you content to simply receive?
Sorry, I was on mute. Councillor Lamb, I'd like to pull out the letter from Belleville regarding the Ontario Disabilities Act.
Okay, thank you. So that is item. Sorry, I should go back and look at the agenda. Which item is that? Which is it?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to follow here.
C.
C? Oh, yeah, C. I'm sorry. I flipped right past it and I'm looking, where is it? Okay, so we've got C. Any other items you'd like to take out for discussion?
Mr. Mayor, Michelle Hendry, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to speak to item F, which is the infrastructure funding, and simply update council on the new information within that document.
Okay, we can certainly do that. So that's the F. So C is Belleville re-AODA, and F is the new, what is it, new ISIP COVID-19 resilience stream. ICIP COVID-19 resilience stream. Anything else? All right, let's go with those two. I'll call the question. Is anybody opposed to the motion that the rest be received and those two be considered? Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead with Belleville and then Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I don't understand what some of this stuff is, and I just want to know whether it impacts us, and maybe staff knows what this is. What is whereas Section 14.4 of OREG 191.11 under the Accessibility for Ontario and Disabilities Act requires designated public service organizations to conform to WCAG Level 2 by January 1st, 2021. So what is that?
Okay, Michelle understands that because she referred to it briefly earlier when she was talking about the website. Michelle, do you want to explain that one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's the standard that all websites have to conform to as of January 1st, 2021. And, you know, from discussions I've had with various municipalities and others, not every municipality is going to be able to conform. We're working on it. That was part of the contract with the AllNet, who we hired to do our website for us. And as I noted, our communications coordinator, Sam, is also working on that. So that's the piece that's holding us up. Well, part of what's holding us up right now, other than some of the web page work that we're working on. But that's exactly what that means, is your website has to be accessible for people with disabilities. And it is going to be a challenge for some municipalities.
So should we be supporting this request, because they're asking to provide support and training resources to municipalities to meet these compliance standards? Does that affect us at all? And should we be supporting this proposition?
If you're reaching out to me for that question, I don't think it would hurt to support it. I think that our municipality is going to be in good shape. We will have the technical ability, and we have our communication coordinator in place to implement these accessibility standards, and they have to be updated fairly frequently. But as I said, not every municipality is in as good shape as we are. Others are struggling, and it's a costly endeavor. And some municipalities have very old websites that have to be updated first, and then look to meet the standards. What we don't know is what kind of enforcement will be in place if, in fact, standards aren't met. But for Whitestone, we should be in very good shape.
By January 1st?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
The standard, I'll just comment, the standard has been around for quite a while. In fact, it's evolved over time, and there have been a number of versions of it. The problem is that a lot of people didn't pay attention to it because it wasn't mandatory. It was just a suggestion. And the people who are hit the hardest, as Michelle said, are folks who have old websites that were designed 10 years ago that don't accommodate all of the modern devices that exist properly. So you try to look at their website on your cell phone or your iPad or whatever, it may not display properly. And the fonts that they use don't comply with that are displayed don't conform with the standard. And so essentially what those people typically have to do is they have to do a major revamp of their website, which we just happen to be in the process of doing. Our current one probably, it's not as bad as some, but it probably isn't compliant either. Well, not probably, it isn't compliant, I'm pretty sure. But so that's really what these folks are asking for, is more time. And so, I think it's up to councillors, if you feel that we should support them. I think what the province is going to say ultimately is, COVID-19 and whatever, we won't hold your feet to the fire on January 1st, but we're also not going to pay you money to to fix it either, fix your website. So. But anyway, we can support it if Councillor Lamb or someone else wishes to make a motion to do so.
I'm okay with the explanation and don't necessarily feel that we have to support their effort here. But if someone else does, I can certainly second the motion.
Okay. Anything further on that item? If not, I'll turn it over to Michelle for item F, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council may recall we've had several discussions at Council about the ICIP infrastructure program, and our project of choice is the nursing station. And at the time we chose that project, we didn't have a lot of information other than there was going to be a funding opportunity, and we didn't know what the application looks like. In fact, we just got the application today, and I haven't looked at it. But what we did find out back on November 6th is that our municipality's allocation is $100,000, period. And it's not related to the cost of the project. So the most we would get out of this project for the nursing station is $100,000. So that's, I don't know if that's the bad news. The good news is that the deadline has been extended to December 21st, and also Whitestone is considered a remote municipality in terms of this particular funding opportunity, which means we have 2 years to do the project as opposed to 1 year. And where that's important for the nursing station is that the opportunity to do fundraising is open to us. If the project had to be completed by the end of December 2021, by the time we got any design work done and final approvals, you'd be hard pressed to get all the money together that's needed. So we're marching forward based on council's direction. There's been a concept plan devised by the architect, and it's back for another iteration, and that's working with the committee and the nurse practitioner. So we'll have a cost of this project at some point, which we'll be able to feed into the application, and then simply go forward, and hopefully there'll be some funding that will come from our neighboring municipalities, Magnetawan and McKellar. And I know there's going to be a couple of deputations to those communities. So that's the news on that it's not as generous as we were hoping, but we're still moving forward, and we'll find out where we stand with the project and where we stand with the actual cost of the project. And we won't know that for another probably 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Michelle, is there any use in approaching McKellar and Magnetawan and asking them what they're considering to apply for their ISAP potential funding? And if they're having any difficulty identifying a project, maybe they can identify the nurses station also. So if we had 2 or 3 trains of 100,000 and we're all successful, then is that even possible? I don't know. So
through you, Mr. Mayor, I happen to be able to. Yes, thank you. I happen to be able to speak for McKellar, and they have another project. Originally, it was broadband, as you may recall, and Whitestone was going to perhaps participate in that. And that it became very clear when the information came out that broadband was not going to be an eligible project. So they've moved onto another project, which is the audio-visual for the community center. And it's a very generous project, and they're allowed at $100,000. What I don't know about is Magnetawan, so I will reach out to them again and see if there's any consideration for a cooperative project.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that item? Oh, we're continuing, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we're continuing to proceed in an effort to get the material we need to do to do a proposal relative to the nursing station and also relative to expanding broadband. So those activities are going ahead. The broadband, as you heard, as we heard 2 weeks ago, really we were pretty sure that it would not be covered. In the meantime, both the province and the feds, as you perhaps know, have announced major funding that will come out through different channels for broadband. So it's not dead by any means. It's just it's not going to be part of this ISIP COVID-19 response thing that happens that they're trying to get going in December. But that doesn't mean that we won't be able to pursue it in next year when it becomes clear how you get access to all this funding that's being talked about. And I guess we'll just have to see how the nursing station situation unfolds. There may be other sources of funding for it too, but in any case, that's pretty much the story on those items. The next item we have is really nothing, no resolutions from that. So we have councilor items. Councilors, anything that you wish to?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Lamb. Go ahead, sorry.
I heard somebody, was it Councilor Woods, you first?
Yeah, I think so. Just a couple. And I know I asked these same sort of questions, one of them anyways, before. The dump passes, all of those have been mailed out, I'm assuming? There was a few meetings ago. I know there was a little bit of a lag in the mail service and whatnot, but they've all been mailed out and sent out to everyone, all properties?
Yes, they have, Mr. Mayor. They've all been mailed out.
Okay, I've talked to.
Where someone hasn't received one, then we can attend to that. But as far as we know, everybody has. Well, they've all been put in the mail. Put it that way. Okay,
so I know quite a few people actually contacted me about this, where they have multiple properties and they received one. Some people haven't received any, and a couple of people actually received dump passes in previous owners' names, where they've been here and owned the property for 4 or 5 years, and they got a dump pass in the previous owner's name. Would they just contact the office and the office could make up new passes for them, or?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. Wherever there's a miss, just call the office and it will be attended to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And one more.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
Sorry to interject, but just I wanted to ask the clerk. The pass doesn't have a person's name on it, does it? It's specific to a property. It's specific to a property. So if the property has changed hands, the new owner gets the pass from the previous owner. Correct?
So I'm assuming that was the envelope. The label on the envelope was the wrong name, Councillor Woods. That's what I was referring to.
But I guess would you? Okay, so would you want to? I'm asking the clerk. Would you want to know about that? Would you want those people to phone the office and say, "I got the pass all right, but it's somebody else's name. It was addressed to somebody else"?
Well, that's of interest to us because if we have the wrong name somewhere in our system, we want it to be corrected. It doesn't stop.
So you would like to hear from them then, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Sorry to cut you off, Councillor Woods.
No problem. That's kind of where I was going with that. I can talk to those people and say, you got to call the office and let Michelle know. The next one.
Just hold on before we leave that one. Yep. Michelle, what other ramifications does that have if it's sent to the wrong thing? What other systems are? You don't have to answer it right now. What other systems are connected into that? It kind of concerns me that we're votes sent out to the wrong person, or and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I mean, what's the ramification of it coming under someone else's name? I guess is my question. Like, why would we have someone else's name in our system, and how deep does that penetrate into other functions of that property?
To you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know, and I think that's what we have to go back and find out. I know that our Deputy Clerk Judy is listening in, and she's probably listening in quite attentively on this because this was a project that she initiated. So between her and Pat Allen, who's also listening in, we'll look into it. We're hoping it's a one-off because the addressing was linked to our taxation list in Unisoft. Mm-hmm. So we definitely have to look into it. I don't know if if it's widespread or if it's just one-off. And you know, council may recall when we had the election, you know, in spite of best efforts with the voters list, there were errors that just didn't get corrected, or that we had to correct on the go. So you know, the system isn't perfect, but it should be near perfect. So we'll certainly look into it, and we encourage you to have people call the office if they've received something with a label on it that wasn't their name.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Back to Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Just one other one. So on the weekend, I decided to take a load of garbage and recycling and whatnot over to Alds Road. I had mostly recycling that I threw in the bins and whatnot, but I had to sort through all the stuff. You know, my kids and my dad were just mounting up all the junk in the yard that I had to take away. And I had, well, 6 shingles. And I went to go dump them, and I was informed that I was not allowed to drop them in the dump. And I know the attendant, and I explained to him, I'm not trying to argue with you, but I am allowed to bring these here. Council made this decision. I was part of the discussion, so I know this to be true. I'm going to leave my shingles here. And the attendant told me, well, no, look, there's even a sign there. There's a sign posted in York Street. I understand York Street, but there's one posted at Alds saying no shingles. I'm just wondering why, because I know that we made the decision to block out the contractors from bringing that type of waste, but we allowed our taxpayers to bring in that type of waste.
I'll jump in again, and I believe that Manager David Creaser is still on the line. So that you are correct. There was a time when we were accepting no shingles, but that got clarified, and we decided, or council decided, that for the household type construction and demolition debris, shingles were acceptable. So we'll have to figure that out and fix that up. And I think it's a gentleman that's newer to the landfill sites that was probably at Alds on the weekend. So we'll get that corrected. David Creaser, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am. I've taken notes here, and I'll absolutely get that corrected and get that sign updated as well.
Judith Main, I'm here as well. I was the one that communicated that to the staff. It wasn't the new fella that's in adults, but it was the previous landfill attendants that we were now allowing shingles to be dropped off. So I guess there needs to be some clarification because they were informed that when we switched it around.
Mr. Mayor, could I make one little comment?
Go ahead.
I believe when we went to the 45-gallon drum or equivalent for yard waste and or yard construction stuff, which could include shingles or whatever, sortable on location, I don't think shingles were exempt from it. So it could be any construction debris up to the volume of a 45-gallon drum.
Yeah, that's my recollection too. Okay, are there other councillor items?
Oh, yes. Sorry, Councillor Lamb.
Go ahead.
The library had their monthly meeting today and unanimously approved that the operating or the new operating name of the library will be the Whitestone Public Library and Technology Center. The legal name will remain the Whitestone Hagerman Memorial Public Library, but the operating name will become the new name, and that reflects, certainly our agreement with the federal government in getting the $150,000 funding that we got from them. That we would be, working very hard on converting the library as we are into much more of a technology center for the community. So I wanted to let people know that is now been approved by the library board. Secondly, I just wanted to inform council that hopefully I won't miss any meetings, but I'm getting my hip replaced in a couple of days. So I'm down in Burlington now, and we'll obviously stay here probably through the end of the year, recuperating since I'm in a condo, so I can walk up and down the hall much easier, and there are no steps and that kind of stuff. So I hope to continue, at the normal meeting in December. I see no reason I shouldn't be able to, but I wanted to just let people know that. So, okay, those are my items. Thank you.
And I'm sure we all wish you well in your surgery, Councillor Lamb, and speedy recovery.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else from councillors?
Councillor McEwen, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
The library is looking impressive. I'd like to comment on that one. Congratulating them. It's long, hard work road to hoe, and it's looking up for them, and it's becoming very impressive. Another item, just reading today, some news I saw flash across, and it's to do with the hydro rates in cottage country, where they've got everybody totally upset. I know they've worked very hard with Hydro One to try to keep the Ontario Energy Board's notions at bay, which are to drop the seasonal hydro customer rate. And Hydro One has been directed by the Ontario Energy Board to do so. I know it's not the end of a battle that will be ongoing to try to work with Hydro One and on to the OEB, who is the governing body and sets the rules. I know the providers like Hydro One and city utilities, they're the ones that look like the goat, because they have to go out and do the actual processing of billing and all that kind of thing under the direction of the Ontario Energy Board. But it's looking like Hydro One is attempting and hopefully will phase in the new rate class, which will affect mega customers and Hydro One distribution. And it'll depend on whether customers are in a low density or a medium density classification area as to what the rates increase will be. But from what I read today, there's the potential of a $70 per month cost increase to certain people in the low density areas, and that translates to $840 a year. So that's a real nasty one, and that's just one example. The bigger the property, the more hydro, the more that number will be increased by. So certainly feel for those people out there, and hopefully the government in cooperation with Hydro One and going back to the Ontario Energy Board can do something to moderate the impact on our seasonal folks. So just a note. I know this came up in council, I'm thinking about 4 years ago, and that's my background, and my feeling and notion at that time was that the rates were pretty much or similar, at least with knowing that we had a seasonal classification, but the rates were pretty similar between the seasonal rates and the different classes of residential. So there was a blending effect or a blending procedure which kept the rates more reasonable for cottage country. It's a hard pill to swallow if you use very, very little hydro and you only use your cottage or your seasonal property for short periods, and now you're going to end up paying big bucks on it out there. So hopefully this isn't done yet, and between Hydro One and the cottage associations provincially and working with the government, they can do something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it was an item, a major item on the last communication I saw from FOCA, the Federation of Ontario Cottagers Association, was sort of warning people that this was coming. So Anything else from councilors?
I just have one item, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
It's quick. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank our public works staff for mobilizing so quickly last night, right during the storm and everything, with a lot of trees down and keeping our roadways open, and so that the fire department, ambulance, and everybody could get out to work this morning. I know it was a late night for them, and there's quite a mess out there, so thanks to them for stepping up last night.
Okay, well, thank you for mentioning that.
I concur with that. I had a call from for a big tree on Maple Island that I guess was blocking the road, and I got a hold of Michelle and then David, and I had suggested that we get David's number directly, and I guess it's the same one as Brian Sheridan. So I should have maybe called David directly, but anyway, I understand the crew was dispatched fairly quickly to fix the situation, and the ratepayer was really, really happy that we were able to respond so quickly. So good job, and I'm not up there, but I think our place is still out of hydro and has been for over 24 hours. So hopefully it'll come on again pretty quickly. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Questions from the public?
Doug Hickey. First of all, hydro is back on Balsam Road, Joe. I just got a notice from hydro.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Did council end up deciding on the wellness center letter whether you're going to tell people about 10 years or 15 years or 20? I think that was kind of left up in the air. Is that decided?
My notes say we said 10 year and 20 year we were going to say.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, anything else?
It's Scott. I just have a really quick question. Earlier in the call, I think Councillor Land had asked a question about the gravel that went down at Lake Wawashkesh. And I guess I just wanted to follow up on that question. And I'm not sure who it would be to, but I believe in the response from one of the municipal staff there, it was said that the gravel went down at the Three Crossroads. And if I'm correct, I thought the Three Crossroads parking area was part of the Bennett's Landing. And I guess my question would be if the Wawashkesh Association collects, I think it's $50 or $60 from the public to park there, and collects funds for that, why the municipality has been putting gravel down, not at the public boat launch in Indian Narrows or the Bennett's Landing, but in the parking area that has money collected for by people using it. That's my question, really.
Well, okay, thank you. Probably that question would fall to me since I'm the chair of the task force that's doing this. What actually happened is that first of all, there are, as you've noted in your question, 3 areas that are involved. There are 2 landings, one at Indian Narrows at the bottom of Indian Narrows Road, and one at the end of Wawashkesh Road where if you followed it straight down and ran into the lake, you'd be on the landing.
Leading the meeting.
Vicky. The basic problem is that these are public landings. They are they're they're accessible not simply to ratepayers on the lake, but to the members of the public, and they are located on Crown land. Some years ago, the Cottagers Association on Wawashkish had an arrangement with the Ministry of Natural Resources that they would do some maintenance of those landings, for example, on the docks. They maintain the docks that are there and other things. And they actually started to sell sort of parking passes. They're not enforceable or anything. They're not enforced or enforceable, but parking passes to try to collect money that they could use to enhance the parking areas. And the Cottagers Association finally said, well, we can't keep up with the demand for space for people to park, vehicles and trailers. On the long weekends, there's essentially no parking anywhere in that whole area, all the way up the hill from the two landings up to the main Bennett's property. So the municipality agreed 2 years ago now to spend a bit of money to improve the parking areas, expand them a bit, and we actually took out a land use permit for some additional space adjacent to the old Bennett's Bay dump, which was up at the top of where the two roads come together. And so there was a budget of, I think it was $37,500 or something that went to as a one-time item to expand those areas. Most of the biggest area is the one at the top, adjacent to the old dump site. Most of the gravel and most of the work was done there, and most of the gravel was done there. There was some that went down to improve the parking area at Indian Narrows, and there was some that was done to improve the parking area right or the actual landing area and some handicap parking that's at the Bennett's Bay site. So the municipality got involved simply because they are public landings. They're not the exclusive. It's not something that is being done for the benefit of the cottagers, and the cottagers argued that they're, quite rightly so, that they're paying for maintenance of a public. When they had sole responsibility for it, they were paying for public access by people who hunt and fish and do canoe trips down the Mag and all this other thing, and so that's what led the council to get involved. I think the discussion will go forward on what the exact arrangements are. There's no, the task force has not discussed changing changing the sort of voluntary permit fees that the association charges or anything like that. Although I think this year they probably didn't get as many because of COVID-19. But in any case, the municipality hasn't agreed to take over maintenance of all the maintenance responsibilities in perpetuity. They still have an agreement with the Cottagers Association, but this is kind of a boost or a kickstart, if you like, to try to make it more efficient. And by the way, we had a vested interest as a municipality because we were getting into situations where it was difficult for our emergency vehicles to get into that area, both in the summer and at peak times in the summer and peak times in the winter and snowmobile season. So that's the reason for it.
Okay, no, thank you. I wasn't aware that that was Crown land. Thank you very much for the detailed answer. I guess my second question to that now would be, if the municipality is providing money for the boat launch on Lake Wawashkish, I know a few council meetings ago, I believe there was some comments about Bolger Lake and lack of parking, and I think a lot of boat trailers and stuff got tickets. And I would assume that that would also be a public landing. And I'll use the lake that I'm on as an example, Gooseneck Lake, which I know you guys have a land use permit for. And I know no gravel went down there this year, and no gravel went down at Bolger Lake. So I'm not sure if maybe council could think about doing a program that all these public landings get routine maintenance or gravel added, not just one such as Lake Wawashkesh. So I don't know if that's going to be thought about for next year's budget, not to work on only that one landing, which I know has a lot of taxpayers to it, but possibly some of the other ones that people do pay taxes to, but also need yearly upkeep and stuff. And that would be my comment, and thank you for your answer again.
Okay, well, thanks for your comment or question, and I guess we can take that suggestion under advisement, and see. We did early in the year did a little inventory of the public landings that we have, and there are a few private ones that are actually on municipal property that aren't Crown land, but so they're not exactly public landings, but we turned out we had quite a few more. We have quite a, sorry, I was just going to say, it turns out we have quite a few more of them than I think most people thought. So but anyway.
Yeah, and I just to clarify, Councillor Lamb, I know that in the past we've done work on the Gooseneck boat launch. I know we've graded it and things like that as best we can, but I know work's been done. I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, and I certainly don't know what's been done this year, if anything. But I agree with Mr. Nash that we should have these boat launches. We should. As we have roads, we should be
leaving the meeting.
Doing
Patricia Allen
should be doing something to them. If we feel that that's proper and right. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from the public? All right then. That would then bring us, since we have no closed session, to our confirming bylaw. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Thank you very much. That bylaw 56-2020, the confirmatory bylaw for the council meeting of November 16th, 2020, be given a first, second, and third and final reading, and is passed as of this date. Any objections to this motion? Hearing none.
Leaving the meeting.
Declare it
Kathy
carried.
Lamb.
And that leads us to, at 3 minutes after 9, to adjournment. Mover and seconder.
I will move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Seconded by?
I'll second.
Councillor Gorm Matthews. And can I assume once again that no one has any objection to this motion?
It's a new
Thank
record.
you very much for your, we're getting better, I guess. Anyway, thank you very much again. Just a reminder to everyone, our next regular scheduled council meeting has been moved to Monday, December the 7th, because we're using the 14th for the meeting on the Pool and Wellness Center. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening. Stay safe.
Thank you. Good night.
Leaving the meeting.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank folks.
Leaving the meeting.
Councillor Lamb.
Leaving the meeting.
Bob Whitman, Fire Chief.
Leaving the meeting.
Councillor Woods.
McEwen.
Leaving the meeting.
Councillor Gorm Matthews.
Leaving the meeting.
Dave Creaser.
Leaving the meeting.
George Pomeroy.
Leaving the meeting.